Hey friends out there in YouTube land, Robert Ham here with Robert Ham Photography. Today I'm answering a question from Steve. How come there's no f11 on the TL70? Which is a great question. We're going to get into that in just a second. But before we do, 3 real quick updates. Number 1, if you guys didn't know, the Ham camera is in full production right now for our launch. We're going to launch this sucker coming January 2018. It's ready to go. We're finalizing a bunch of stuff. If you don't know about this yet, that's okay. Just go check us out at The Box Is Back. 120 box camera. Really nice right there. And just thought you'd like to see this. Here's a photo taken with the camera. Bam! How cool is that, right? This is my little boy poking his head from behind a tree. How cool is that? Really neat stuff. Finally, the last announcement is that I've got approved for Amazon affiliate links, which is very important for me, which means that if you like what I'm doing, then on any of my videos that have the Amazon affiliate links, if you choose to purchase something, I'll get a little kickback from that. Generally, it's my gear list and whatever it is that I'm talking about, so it's pertinent to the video that you're watching. But hey, man, if you guys like what I'm doing, the best way to support me and help keep this going is just to use that link. You'll save some money, and they'll give me a little bit of change in my wallet, so why not? All right, so let's get right into it. Steve asks the question. Says, hey, Robert. Hi, Steve. How you doing? I'm really digging your videos on the TL70. You convinced me to buy a TL70. I'm excited about that. I'm glad that you found my videos helpful. Eagerly awaiting, so I would be too. My question is, why is there no f11 on the aperture setting? From your videos, I just assumed that it would all be in one-stop increments. And you know, really great thought there. This video doesn't need to be too long to explain it, and I'm here to share with you why. f11, although a complete f-stop, one stop up from f8, one stop below f16. It's kind of an intermediate setting on a camera like the TL70. It's also an intermediate setting for me on the aperture rings that I'd used for my box camera. So I think Mint and I may have been on the same kind of thought process, although we didn't have any communication about it, and I don't have any direct answers from Mint as to why they don't have an f11. But I'll share with you why I don't use an f11 and why I don't think that Mint used one on the TL70. The first thing comes down to the type of film that's going to be used in here. 800 speed film, that's a very fast film. It's very, very light sensitive. You're going to find the best results with this when you're using f22 or f16 when you're outdoors shooting Sunny 16. Although a solid f-stop in the increments between f8 and f16, a complete f-stop, f11 is kind of intermediate in what it's actually going to give you for light stopping capability and light gathering capability on the inverse of that. What that just means is that it's kind of in between. It's a midpoint. And in this particular situation, with this camera, where the aperture is rotary, it's a rotary aperture. There's a stamped templated die that's a rotary die that as you move this wheel, it opens and closes different apertures. They twist. Well, you just don't have a lot of room, and so you've got to choose one to keep and one to get rid of. So on a situation like this, where we've got a total of 5 apertures, an f-bokeh, which is a special aperture, wider than f5.6, and it could be like a heart, a rainbow, a spade, or a clover, or f5.6, f8, skipping f11, you get f16 and f22. You just get the best, most usable apertures in that scenario. Had they decided to include an f11, they would have needed to get rid of the f-bokeh, and this means that Mint had a decision to make. They were either going to get rid of a special Easter egg hidden in every single camera, or they were going to add an incremental f-stop that really doesn't do much for the type of photography that this camera is going to be used for. Specifically, the difference between f16 and f11 is very, very small on Instax Mini. So skipping f11 and going straight from f16 to f8 or vice versa gives you much greater versatility in the camera. So it helps out in 2 ways. Number 1, it gives us better low light capability, opening up f5.6, as well as a special f-bokeh as an Easter egg. And on another way, it gives us the ability to have our bright light, f16 and f22, still represented. Another question could have been, why didn't they use an f32 instead of an f-bokeh so that you could have better shots out during the daytime? And then that comes down to this. At an f32, a f-stop of 32, you would really get into really quite a bit of vignetting. Better to use a neutral density filter on a wider aperture than to use a smaller aperture. So there you have it. Real simple. When given the choice to keep f11 or add something extra special, f11 can go out the window because it's kind of incremental in the type of photography that this will be used for. Now, for me, it's kind of the same thing. On this camera right here, we've got an aperture stick that allows us to choose, and it's held in by tension and springs so that you can detent in the proper spot, but let's go ahead and pull it out. Here, we've got 3 apertures on the stick, and it's real simple. We've got f22, f16, and f8 on this particular stick. Notice I skipped f11. There's no reason for f11 because the difference between f8 and f16 are so incremental that it wouldn't be very helpful for the camera that it's using. F11 is kind of incremental. Now sure, on your DSLR or on your full-size camera SLR, having the ability to choose every f-stop in between can be quite helpful, but on the type of photography that we'd be doing with this, which is mainly street photography, and some landscapes and maybe some portraiture at wider apertures like f8 and f5.6, then you have to know lots of stuff. So for this camera to work properly, the depth of field is going to be set at basically 8 feet to infinity at f22. So when we go out there, everything basically 6, 7, right at 8 feet in front of you is in focus. No focus required, just click the shutter, call it a day, wind it to the next one. However, when we start opening up on a camera like this, unlike with the TL70 that you can focus, you have to know your depth of field. You have to know where your near and far limits will be. Of course, that information will be in all the camera packaging because it's kind of important, but using something like f8 in this instance means that my depth of field is going to be roughly everything about 7 feet to about 12 feet is in focus, and then focus begins to fall off past 18 feet is my hyperfocal distance with this particular f8, which means that if I want to do some portraiture like the shot we saw earlier, we can. This one was actually done with an f4 aperture that I have for this lens right there, which is basically just a wide open lens. And look at the stunning depth of field that we're able to capture. But that means that I'm 6.5 feet in front of my sun, and I've got a distance between about 5 feet to 7 feet that are actually in focus. That's the focal plane, and everything else begins to fall off. It also means that I had to find a subject where the background was far enough away, directly behind me, that I could get a shallow depth of field. Guys, that picture was taken with the brown one of these, my vintage brown. How crazy is that? That came out of a box camera. It's just nuts. It's just absolutely nuts. Most people would never think of that. The point is, each type of photography, whether it's instant photography or whether it's box camera, portraiture, has its own unique set of variables. And in both cases, in my case, f11 was just an incremental aperture that wasn't necessary. And for Mint, it wasn't necessary because they were able to add additional features because of the space that the f11 didn't use, such as the f-bokeh. And that's a really cool, special Easter egg aperture to use. Guys, I'm Robert Ham with Robert Ham Photography. Today, we've been talking about why there's no f11 on the TL70. This is my favorite camera for Christmas moments. Got to tell you there, really awesome. And I love the idea that Steve's got for using this with some question and answer portrait street photography. That's so cool. Steve, when you watch this, make sure to put a link to your work down below. I'd love to see it. I'd love to follow whatever it is that you're doing. Guys, I want to thank you for watching and remind you that I will catch you on the flip side.